It is NBA draft season, and with that, we have plenty of mock drafts and big boards coming out, and that includes some Purdue players. Ethan, I know you and I both the Sam Vecini mock draft that came out recently both caught our eye for a couple of reasons, and mainly as it caught, I believe, Boilerball's Twitter account's eyes as well. Trey Kaufman-Renn was slotted in that mock draft. And then you mentioned the Jonathan Givony big board. I've not seen that, the top 100 that supposedly has 4 Purdue players in it, and you're warning me on where Oscar Clough is slotted in on that list. So I'm excited to figure out the number. Which one would you like to talk about first?
Let's start with the Vicini mock draft. Vicini is one of my favorite NBA draft analysts, and I think the really interesting thing here is not just that Trey Kaufman-Renn is ranked in the top 100. He's been there for the last 2 years. Pretty much anytime you have a player that productive in college, he'll be lingering around the fringe of NBA draft discussions. But actually seeing him projected to be drafted is a pretty big change. This whole time, he sort of fit the classic profile of like, oh, this guy is an elite college player, but his team just doesn't really mesh with the NBA, and he'll probably be a star in Europe or one of the best players in the G League for 10 years, but sticking around the NBA is probably going to be difficult for him. But I'll say this, the way Trey sort of molded his game and morphed his game, I should say, this year, has me intrigued about his potential to last in the NBA.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think depending on what he does athletically and how he holds up in the summer league, because I think no matter what, he'll get a summer league invite. He was not invited to the combine, actually, which I think was kind of shocking to me. He was probably the biggest name, I think, that was left out of the combine. And I
Him or
think,
Darion Williams?
yeah, definitely one of those two. But I think Trey probably needed the combine because I think there's a world that he tests well at the combine, and that helps his stock immensely. Uh, his biggest questions, I think, are always just going to be defensively, how he holds up in the NBA.
He'll be at the G League combine. So he wasn't invited to the main NBA draft combine, but he will be at a combine, and teams will have all the measurements and athletic testing and, film on drills and shooting and all that for him. Fletcher Lawyer will also be at that, by the way, though there are reports that Oscar Clough was snubbed. I think Givony would definitely agree with that, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Trey, yeah, so the Portsmouth Invitational, which is sort of like a college all-star tournament for fringe NBA draft players, was held, I believe, last weekend. I was not watching it closely. I was during the NFL draft, which is, my big weekend, of course. But he was awesome there. He was arguably the best player in a college all-star game, which certainly helps your stock. And he was productive. He was a triple-double threat, made the all-tournament team, I believe, was the MVP one game. The thing that caught my eye in that game was his shooting. He was on fire from three-point range in that tournament, shot almost 50% across multiple games, which I don't know if I ever would have thought he would do that. If that shot is real, and I'll put real in quotation marks because I don't think he'll ever be a 40% three-point shooter at any level of basketball. If he's like a 32% three-point shooter, his chances of sticking in the NBA go way up. But I also don't think he needs to be a shooter to have a chance.
Yeah, I think the biggest, swing skill he has that could really help him land and stick on a NBA roster is his rebounding. If he rebounds the way he did this year, I think all of a sudden a lot of NBA teams see some value there as like a backup four that, doesn't play a ton, but is in the rotation, can get some minutes, and he's definitely offensively capable. I think the passing is another thing that really kind of is an intriguing part of Trey Kaufman-Renn's game because even though he's not a shooter, he's become a bit of a playmaker, and he's really good in the short roll. I think the NBA is also getting a lot bigger and kind of moving into more traditional two bigs. I mean, you see a lot of true power forwards, I think, kind of coming back to today's game. And Trey, I think, would fit that mold as kind of a budget bench option to just kind of be a big, consistently good part of your second unit.
Yeah, I mean, the key for Trey is going to be able to hold up on the defensive end. I don't think either of us are envisioning a world where he's like a lockdown defender, though. I don't think either of us envisioned a world where he was a double threat every single night coming into this year. So maybe if he's going to make it in the NBA and he knows he needs to get better on defense, maybe that's just how he morphs his game for the next iteration of it. I won't put anything past him. Um, but as much as people joke about how defense is optional in the NBA these days, it's very much not. You're seeing that in the playoffs right now. Like there's so many sub 100-point games that these playoff defenses are holding teams to, because defense is still very important, and having switchable athletic players at all 5 positions become kind of a premium for these top teams. And having guys that can come in off the bench and kind of hold up on defense is going to be key for them as well. So for Trey to last in the NBA, he just can't be a black hole on defense, right? Like he can't just be the guy that's hunted in every single matchup and gets blown by for easy buckets on the other end, because even if his offensive game is worth playing, he's going to get pulled after 2 backdoor cuts, or after he lets, Anthony Edwards get the switch he wants again and again and again, right? So, that's going to be key for him. But, his touch around the rim is genuinely elite. He's a great rebounder. He's a good decision maker with some passing upside. The one thing that's a little bit awkward projecting his fit to the NBA is he's a little bit between positions. And what I mean by that is offensively, his best fit in the NBA is as a 5. And the reality is that he's a 6'9", below the basket, undersized 5 if he's playing that position. Like, how many teams are going to give him touches in the short roll in the NBA? Probably not many, right? Even on a bench unit. And so I think he's going to need to find ways to play like a true 4 and be productive in that spot. If he can actually stretch the floor at least a little bit. I mean, Edey went to the NBA after banking in his only made 3 in college and can stretch the floor a little bit. So I think that's really all Trey needs to be a successful, at least have a chance at being a successful NBA player and having, sticking on a roster in some capacity. But at the very least, he's going to be a summer league darling. His game will translate to that method for sure.
Oh, 1,000,000%. As long as the guard's passing the ball, which occasionally happens in the summer league, depending on your roster. Let's switch into, I think, the guy who's more likely to stick in the NBA. And I think a guy who I expected to play several years in the NBA. I don't really see him not sticking in the NBA. Like, I think there's a much higher chance Trey doesn't stick. But Braden Smith is currently projected to go 39th. That pick, I think, is still up in the air for whose pick it is, but in Sam Vecini's mock draft, it's the Rockets. Do you think that's too high or too low for Braden? And then we can kind of talk potential fit with Houston and like a couple other places where you think Braden would fit in.
That's a little low for Braden, I think. There's another mock I saw recently that had him go 34 to the Grizzlies, ironically. Reunion with Zach Edey, I think would be fun for everyone involved there. But yeah, his stock has actually dropped a little bit since his sophomore year. After his sophomore year, he was a projected first-round pick. And since then, as good as he's been in the 2 years where he was the best player on the team, some of the limitations of his game have shown up, right? He is small. He is going to struggle to get separation against, as good as his first step is, he's a good athlete, genuinely, but he will struggle to gain separation consistently one-on-one against like the athletic NBA style defenders. We kind of talked about that in previews and recaps throughout this season of like, this team has a lot of like 6'7", 6'8" guys who have length and can guard on the perimeter. Like Braden sometimes has trouble with those guys. So as much as that limitation has shown up in his game, he's such a projectable backup point guard in the NBA. Like Tyus Jones got a massive contract after playing a backup point guard role in the NBA for 4 years. And then everyone kind of realized as a starting point guard, he's pretty limited, but he's since kind of fallen back into a backup role, and he will probably continue to have that for another couple of years. Like that's kind of how I envision Braden's NBA career going is, or, you take a look at the other Nembhard, Ryan Nembhard in Dallas this year, undrafted, but kind of came in, was like, this guy just has elite feel for the game, plus passer. Like the NBA will always have room for those guys.
Yeah, and I think the big thing for me is plus passer. Like that's why people like playing with Nembhard so much, is because you can trust that like the 4 guys that are playing next to him, around him, can be good players, and he's going to set them up perfectly. And I think that one, guys like playing with a guy like that. It's easy to build cohesion around a guy like that. And I think it's also that's a more consistent play style. Like that's a guy who I think is going to consistently show up and you know what you're getting from him. And I think is projectable. Like that's projectable upside that I think, as you mentioned, the NBA is always going to like that. Speaking, let's move into fit a little bit. Projected to go to Houston. I kind of like this fit, and honestly, watching Houston, I think there's a little bit of like a path to him getting major minutes if he ended up there. Obviously, I think the pick is still up in the air, so who knows if it's Houston. How do you feel about like what do you think he'd look like on Houston?
I mean, they need a point guard, right? I
Yeah,
mean, they're probably. I mean, they've since tightened the gap a little bit, but they're probably going to lose in the first round of the Lakers without Luka Doncic and without for most of the series without Austin Reeves because they don't have a point guard. Now, that's not entirely their fault. Fred Van Vliet tore his ACL before the season, but even with him in the fold, they need a backup point guard, and I think that's what Braden projects to be in the NBA. And they got a lot of shooters. They don't have a lot of shooters that can make shots, so that might frustrate Braden a little bit. But in theory, they have a lot of guys like. I mean, can you imagine Amon Thompson slashing to the rim and a bounce pass feed from Braden Smith? Like that's kind of the vision with him in an NBA. Imagine all the NBA spacing he's going to have. Like he's going to be like the guy who plays like 8 minutes a game as a rookie and is on like the league pass highlights every night because SportsCenter's like, oh, did you see this pass from Braden Smith? You know,
well, and like the 3 minutes a game he would get with Kevin Durant would be in heaven, right? Like Kevin Durant would be set up on a platter for 4 straight possessions before he gets to play with Fred Van Vliet again, and the Rockets are probably better with Van Vliet on the floor. But I think that there's going to be a level of like I enjoy playing next to this guy that a lot of really good players are going to have next to Braden Smith, like every star does when they play next to a really good passing point guard. Like think about playing next to Rajon Rondo. You talk to any of Rondo's former teammates, and they tell you how much they love playing with Rajon Rondo because he set them up amazingly. I mean, he makes your life so much easier.
absolutely. And I think for Braden too, like moving to the NBA is going to be, I think, enjoyable for him as well, assuming he gets an opportunity because the space in the NBA is so much better. Just the rules combined with how the court's designed, and also the higher skill level means spacing is better. Like he'll have so much more room to do his fancy passing. He'll get into the paint at will. He's also a 40% 3-point shooter and a truly elite catch and shoot shooter. Like his catch and shoot numbers are almost better than Fletch's. And he didn't get to take a ton of them at Purdue because the ball's always in his hands. But other NBA teams are going to be employing multiple ball handlers even when he's on the floor. Like he can dump off on a screen and go to the corner and just tee off, right? And I think he has a chance to be like a truly great bench player for that reason. He's a high steals guy, so in theory, despite his size, he can at least have some impact on defense. He'll be hunted for sure, right? I mean, talk about playing with Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant could also hunt him if he ends up somewhere else, and those are the kinds of players he's going to have to contend with on the defensive end. But I can see him being a long-term piece in the league. And speaking of role players, speaking of our last two names here, do you want to know the order that Jonathan Givony listed our 4 Purdue friends on his top 100?
I'm gonna guess Braden Smith, Oscar Clough, Trey Kaufman, Fletcher Lawyer in that order.
You have it correct. So he has Braden
Yeah,
Smith at 41. He has Fletcher Lawyer at 96. Trey Kaufman at 77th, for the record. Oscar Clough at 67. Now,
that's
Clough,
right outside second round pick territory.
that is, if 7 guys go back to school, he's getting picked in the second round territory. Because again, all these, to be clear, all these projections and big boards, this is before the return deadline, which is after the combine, right? So in about a
Right, and
month.
there's some real names in there, like guy. I mean, Juke Harris is projected on all these boards. He's going to be back. Alan Graves. It would not shock me if he's back. I mean, he's a guy who I think
Mhm.
hasn't even really made a decision. Malik Thomas is a guy. Has he announced if he's back or not?
He's gone through the process, so he might be. Amari Allen, there's a chance he comes back. Tyler Tanner, I guess, is
Is-
probably back.
Isaiah Evans
Um,
is definitely back.
Isaiah Evans is gone. He already announced he's
Oh,
gone.
he announced he's gone. Oh,
He announced
I
he's gone.
just assumed he
Uh,
wasn't good enough.
I mean, he's projected borderline top 20 pick, so he'll be gone for sure.
Christian
Koa
Anderson is
Pete,
probably back, or might be.
it could be Koa Pete. There's potential he could come back. I guess he still goes, but some of these guys, Morez Johnson, apparently still up in the air if he's going to be back or not. Mara's definitely gone, but Morez could, in theory, be back.
I mean, and Mara should be gone too. For the record, like Vicini has him mocked
Yeah,
ninth to.
he's a lottery lock at this point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, I mean, if he's a top 10 pick, he needs to go, and I think he deserves to be a top 10 pick. So
Ruben Shinyelu, good chance he's back. Milan Momcilovic
he's
feels like a
probably back.
50-50
Yeah,
proposition at this point.
I think he'll be back. Quite
I
honestly,
agree. I
I have
agree.
some real questions about him at the NBA level. I think just it worries me somewhat that a guy that plays the three that's 6'8" in college is like a below average rebounder and defender. I just
I yeah.
I worry about that a little bit. I think the only thing he does at an NBA level is shoot, and I mean he is an absurd shooter. Like he is probably one of the best shooting prospects we've had for pure pure shooting for the NBA in quite some time. But it's just everything else with him. I think another year in college would do him good, and I think that's a type of guy that like wants to come back, be a third option on a championship level team, and all of a sudden you've really got something.
I
But
mean, John Blackwell, Andrei Stojakovic, Jeremy Fears are all still in the draft right now. Those guys are all coming back. So,
yeah,
yeah, I mean, I think Trey Kaufman-Renn getting a second round pick feels like a 50-50 proposition at this point, and he could be the 59th pick in the draft. He could be a guy who gets a 2A off of a summer league contract undrafted, and it wouldn't surprise me either way. But moving from some draft conversation, we'll know a little bit more about where these stand once we get through the combines and the return deadline in about a month. But we do have some small recruiting updates. So we talked about Chase Richardson's visit last week. He has since committed to Texas A&M. So you've been talking about how that's a good sign for Purdue, you think?
Yeah, I think that means that we're going to get one of the bigger fish that we're after, whether it's Jackson Davis, Kevin Savage, or Reese Alston. I think Reese Alston is pretty clearly the best of the three, but unfortunately, I think that he'll end up at Houston. He just screams Houston guard to me. I think it's going to be Kevin Savage or Jackson Davis, and I think Kevin Savage fits what Purdue's looking for a little bit more just because Jackson Davis is more of a two guard to me, I think, even at the next level. And so I think Savage is the guy that Purdue wants. Purdue, I think, is the best offer on his list. I mean, it's like Purdue and Auburn are really like the two best schools after him. And I think Purdue's the best school for that. It's an interesting fit just because I think you're looking at a potential depth chart of junior Omer Meyer and sophomore Luke Ertl. Like, that's a tough spot to break in at the point guard spot. But I think Kevin Savage is a 4-year guy and would be around for the long haul. And I would like that kit for sure. I think anytime you can get a guy as good as that, you want to.
I'm wondering if Purdue sees Ertl as a 2. The way they're talking about Ertl while at the same time going after stars at point guard in 2027 makes me wonder if they see his long-term fit at the 2. Because they've had a pretty clear succession plan this whole time from Braden Smith to your plan with Omer, right? Backs up Braden, then takes over as the guy in 26 to plug and play starter in the 27 class, whether that's Alston or Savage, right? And that makes me wonder if they see Ertl as a 2 long term.
Yeah, I'm with you. I do think Ertl probably projects as a 2 long term. The one thing I would say with that is a Kevin Savage, Luke Ertl backcourt would be very small, and I would be a little concerned about that defensively, I think. I do think that they'll both end up being plus defenders for their size, but I just question playing them together. You're likely going to run into, even if it's not often, you're going to likely run into a team with a really big athletic 2 at some point if you're trying to win a national championship, which I would hope is the ultimate goal here. You're probably going to see a big athletic 2 guard, and you're going to have an answer for that. Who knows? Ertl may be up for the challenge. Like CJ Cox, I believe Matt Painter on the what is it? The For Pete's Sake pod, I think is what it is. The Purdue Athletics podcast specifically mentioned CJ Cox has 3 years of eligibility left, which I know gets me excited after it. I mean, hey, I know a lot of Purdue fans like to be not happy with like the 5-5 and stuff, and I think it sucks. I would rather just have the traditional 4-year eligibility rules, but I think at this point it's happening, and there's no sense in being upset about it. It's more about what can we do with it because everybody else is going to get it too. So we might as well take as much advantage of it as we can. And I think a guy like CJ Cox fits that mold. And you kind of look forward and you see what this roster could look like in a couple of years, and I think you get really excited. I mean, I think Cager Knippel is still in play. I mean, Isaiah Hill has been reportedly a Purdue lean for like a year and a half now. It feels like ever since he was a junior back at Pike, and so hopefully you get some sort of commitment or something soon, because I do think if like a Duke or a UConn gets involved with Isaiah Hill, he probably goes there. But who knows if Purdue's able to somehow secure a commitment earlier in the EYBL season, not let this recruitment drag out any further. I think that they're probably still the leader in the clubhouse for Hill, but who really knows with that one?
I mean, Purdue's very clearly the leader in the clubhouse for Hill, to the point where no one else has really mentioned around Hill's name anymore. The question there is more, will someone else get involved that will then sway their way? Versus, like, if his offer list stays the same, I think he'll be in a Purdue uniform for however long he's in college. Speaking of Cager, by the way, Duke has since offered him, since we did our video last week. Sounds like Michigan, Texas A&M are getting involved as well. So this is definitely a recruitment that, while Purdue's been in on early, is blowing up. There are a lot of big names after him. Now, Purdue has a very clear, very protectable role in their offense for him. They're probably going to tell him he can be 6'10" Fletcher Lawyer and get as many shots over he wants, as often as he wants them. But this is the Knippel family we're talking about. Obviously, Khan had a fantastic season and experience at Duke, and they, as well as Michigan, are going to be able to pay him more than Purdue will, most likely. And I wouldn't even necessarily count out Texas A&M. Cager Knippel in a buckyball system honestly terrifies me, and that would be pretty interesting, I think, on a pitch level, to be like, oh yeah, you can play the forward, also you'll be shooting 10 threes a game, come here and score 30. And
I think another kind of point, or another drop in Purdue's bucket a little bit for Cager, is there's not really a 4 on the roster after this year. Like Benter, kind of, I would rather see Benter at the 3 in the long run rather than at the 4. I think he's a little bit better at the 3 than the 4. I think that's his natural. And I think Cager would be a great fit at the 4. I think like Isaiah Hill could even play the 4 as well. And like all of a sudden you look at this front court of like, you have Daniel Jacobson, Sinan Juan, Isaiah Hill, Cager Knippel, and Riley Burgess is like your 5 front court pieces in 27. And you're like, wow, we feel really, really good about this. And we have a lot of talent, a lot of size, and a lot of versatility there that I think, Sinan Juan's high school coach claims that he might be better at the 4 than the 5 in college. And I think Isaiah Hill is a guy that, you've said he's reminded you of Chris Sinak. I certainly see it. I think he's a better shooter than that too. And like, I think his shooting and his athleticism, he's 7 foot, but he's only 210, 215 pounds. Elite shot blocker, moves his feet really well and can shoot. Like, I think that guy slots in at the 4 if you want to go too big. And Cager's a true 4. And I think the thing I like about Cager is that on first glance, he looks really thin, and it looks like it's not going to be able to hold up at the 4. And then I think you watch him for a couple minutes and you're like, he's a little bigger than you think. He's a little stockier than you think. I think he's a better rebounder than people give him credit for. And there's a little bit of like rim protection there. He is 6'10". He's pretty athletic for 6'10". He's got pretty long arms. And, he surprises people, I think. People don't really challenge him a ton at the EYBL level at the rim. And as we've seen in the last session, just an unbelievable shooter. Like, will be one of the best shooters in the country, I think, from the start. And it's really unique to me because I think Purdue is going from having a lot of undersized shooters to, like, if you land Cager and you think about the shooting on teams going forward, it's like 6'7" Jacob Weber, 6'6" Jack Benner, 6'10" Cager Knippel. Potentially 7'4" Daniel Jacobson if his shot is what we think it could be, and even like CJ Cox at the 2 is like a 6'3", 6'4" guard that has a lot of size. And I think there's so much size coming in potentially that it's hard not to get excited.
I think Cager can play the 3 as well. He reminds me a little bit of Milan Momcilovic, who you mentioned earlier. has some concerns in the NBA based on the fact he's kind of only a shooter, but obviously an elite college player and creates a lot of problems because he plays the three. Like I think Cager can do some of the same things. Now the question for him is going to be, can he move well defensively to stay in front of threes? But honestly, Milan didn't do a whole lot of defensive moving at Iowa State of all places under Otts, and still saw the floor because of just how much of a mismatch weapon he was on offense. I could see something similar with Cager, and all of a sudden you're running out like Daniel Jacobson, Isaiah Hill, Cager Knipple lineups that just looks like all the teams that Purdue's had trouble with in the past, and all of a sudden Purdue's trotting out those lineups, and I think that'd be pretty exciting. On the recruitment side of things, sounds like Wisconsin really isn't in the running. If I were to name a leader right now, it would be Purdue, just because they've been in on him the longest, other than Wisconsin. But like we said, Duke, obviously big connection there. They have offered him. Michigan, Texas A&M gotten involved. You can expect more offers to come rolling in. I don't know. I guess how involved those other teams get probably depends on how big a lock Duke is seen on this and how quickly. Like if Duke does the full court press and moves to lock him up quickly, other teams might kind of back off and assume he's going to Duke. But if they're still playing this, because he's still outside the top 100 in national recruiting rankings, though he'll rise for sure.
He'll jump in the next update.
He'll jump, but the question still is,
a good start to his UIBL year that he has to jump. Unless he just throws up a stinker in the next session, I can't see him not making a massive jump in like the top 50.
I assume he'll be top 50 the next time the rankings come out, and Duke still tends to get better prospects than that. So it'll depend on if they're like, no, we want Cager, he's our guy, or if they're like, we have an offer out, we're going to play the field a little bit and see who else we can get, and that might open the door for Purdue to stay involved and some other teams to get in the mix as well. But I think that pretty much covers it in terms of recruiting updates. We're kind of still waiting on the Kevin Savage and Isaiah Hill commitments that have been rumored to be coming for a while. The longer these things come out where it's like behind the scenes he's committed, but no announcements made, that doesn't tend to be a good sign for the team that is the presumed front runner. But sometimes it just takes a little time for these details to be wrapped up, things to get signed, maybe some big events coming up where they want to make an official announcement, things like that. Matt Painter on the Pete's Sake podcast, like you mentioned earlier, did confirm that Purdue's looking to add one more piece for 2026. So who that is, we don't know. Obviously, the French, big man Enzo has kind of been the international connection, but we haven't really seen any movement there in a while. We're not really sure if there's another target involved, but if there's nothing else, I think that pretty much covers it.
Yeah, I think on Cager, I was just going to finish with, I think it comes down to Purdue or Duke, and I think can Purdue get him to commit to Purdue before Duke actually fully really is like, Cager, we want you to come and have a serious role here, as opposed to we just have an offer out. I think right now it's probably more the latter, and we just have an offer out. And like you said, we're going to see if like one of the big name fours wants to bite and come to Duke, because I'm sure they would take one of the big names over Cager. But I think ultimately, like Michigan and Texas A&M getting involved so late, they don't really scare me a ton. Maybe Michigan should. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm just crazy and they should terrify me. But I think this ultimately comes down to Purdue or Duke. And I think the longer every day longer like this recruitment goes on, I think tends to push this more and more in Duke's favor.
Yeah, I tend to agree. But the 2027 class, the 2026 class isn't even on campus yet. So a lot can change between now and then. Duke could bring in some other fours that kind of push Cager out and he's looking to go somewhere else, or maybe Purdue's able to lock it down early. Who knows? As always, please subscribe, like the video, stick around. We're going to be covering all Purdue athletics, football, basketball content throughout the off season. It's a long off season. We all know that. We're 1 month, 1 out of 7 down for the college basketball off season. So we're kind of cruising along here already. But yeah, if there's nothing else, I think that about wraps it up for us right now.
Yeah, I think you covered it all, and thanks for listening, everyone.